Welcome to the NAMB Podcast, where we bring you the voices that drive the mortgage industry. Join dynamic hosts Ginger Bell and Matt Shields as they dive into bold conversations with top experts, industry leaders, and change makers from across the country. From insider insights to game-changing trends, this is your front row seat to what's happening right now in the world of home finance.
Well, hi there. Welcome to another episode of the NAMB Podcast. My name is Ginger Bell, and I have my co-host with me, Matt Shields. Hey, Matt, how are you?
Hey, Ginger. I am doing great. I'm really excited for our podcast today.
Absolutely.
Great guys on here.
And I'm going to let you introduce because we have some guests that have been friends for a long, long time, and I'll let you go ahead and do the honors of introducing them.
Absolutely. And so happy to be able to say two friends of mine on here, Marvin Hudson and Lauren Patterson. Thank you guys so much for being on the podcast with us today. So excited to have you on here.
Happy to be here. Thank you guys for asking us to be here.
Good to see everybody again. Happy.
Absolutely. And I know you guys have been busy. So with all the GA stuff, all the government affairs stuff, if you don't mind giving us an idea of what's kind of going on with NAMB in the GA space going into the first quarter of 2026.
Okay. And I would love actually if we can just kind of wrap up the previous year that we had.
Yeah, wrap up 20.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do a little year in wrap. Yeah.
We ended that year, which was Lauren's chair year, by getting trigger leads past Mr. Patterson.
That's talk about an accomplishment there.
Yeah, yes. Which, by the way, didn't happen just in 2025. You started that, if I recall, about 7 years ago. Is that right?
It was. It was yes. 7 years ago when we very first started having discussions in D.C. on that. Legislation was written several times. Members did not get reelected. Legislation dies. Legislation has to get re-erected. And then finally last year, after much heavy lifting by a number of different people in the industry, right? There were different groups that came together, but we finally all got it done, and hopefully it moves forward, and that's what it has to do and protects consumers the way that we hope it does.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And Marvin, thank you for starting off with that, because this is a continuum. And because it is a continuum, NAMB has been doing this for a long time as far as boots on the ground, in not just DC, but in various states lobbying with state legislators and doing that. And I always say it's the best kept secret in the industry because you all do such an amazing job giving your time, giving your expertise. And I know I've sat down and had conversations with both of you, and it just blows my mind how much you know and you're passionate and everything. And I think that for our listeners, especially with whether you're a member of NAMB or not a member of NAMB, what you all do for us in the industry is phenomenal. So thank you for that. Thank you for your service. And thank you for that commitment, Lauren, because I know you have been, with Utah, with your state association, leading that for many, many years. And Marvin, I know in California, same thing. So thank you for that. But let's dive into 2026. So we're getting there. So what are we looking at coming up in the future? What's that crystal ball look like?
Oh, beautiful. Okay. So in preparation for this 25-26 year, we had our standard board retreat, right? And during that retreat, we had our lobbyist present along with others. And we identified what our top legislative priorities were going to be for this year and what our top regulatory priorities were going to be for this year. So these initiatives they're at any point in time, they can be a little supplanted, right? Because something might pop up that we didn't know about that was now introduced at the legislative level. So we'll address that, but these will not be off of our list at all. I say supplanted only for the time being, as we maybe focus on something urgent right at the moment. But we're, starting off, we definitely need to address LO comp. And I understand that you guys will be hearing from our president, Kimber, and our president-elect, Mike Farrell, who will be on your podcast next week. And they were in DC. This past Tuesday and Wednesday, talking about LO comp with the CFPB, the meeting that was arranged for our lobbyists, talking to Pulte about on the FHFA side, talking about at that point in time, LOPAs and such, but I'll let them get into more detail because we weren't in the conversation. But looking at our LO comp is a primary thing. And as we've been hearing about consistently for at least the past 5 months, is affordable housing, right? We know the affordability crisis has been a conversation for the past couple of years, especially highlighted. And on that affordability side, we're looking at having those conversations that will help with the LPAs. And when we're looking the expansion of the AMI side, if we can get, there are not that many counties overall where you can really squeeze in 50% AMI, 80% AMI. The 100% is barely making it. We really need to see if we can get that boosted, if not to 130% AMI, at least that area median income, 120% of that. At least if we can get that to be the standard, then we can actually have more deep down payment assistance programs helping out. These low down, the 97% home ready and home possible, this could really be helped by increasing that AMI side. Lauren, do you want to speak any more about some of those details?
Affordability is something that's challenging everybody in the country, and it's something that we are paying particular attention to, and it's something that we're having a number of discussions with our regulators and legislators on both sides of the aisle in DC on. Everybody is extremely receptive to it. Everybody is looking for ways to solve this. I mean, we saw it come out where they mentioned 50-year loans. That kind of went over like a bit of a wet blanket, right? When you look at everything that was out there. But it's something where everyone is looking at this from a very holistic standpoint. And I don't think, I applaud everybody and all of our legislators, because everybody wants to find the perfect fit. They're also putting ideas out there. And through putting various ideas out there, then it becomes a combination of, well, if this doesn't work exactly this way, what if we tweak this? And that's where we're excited, because we're being invited into these conversations, Ginger. And so
Nice.
We're able to go in and we're able to represent originators and the people that are on the ground and that are doing this day in, day out with consumers, and really provide an accurate real-time narrative to the people that are writing these laws and looking at making legislation, so that they can see and hear exactly what's happening from the street level and from the consumers that they're there to represent. So,
and I wanted to kind of just dive into that a little bit, and because Matt heads up our NAMB Young Professionals, and in that, a lot of amazing individuals who are fairly new to our industry, and learning obviously the ins and outs of the industry, and very interested on the dynamics that happens within the in things that you're talking about as far as legislation, because long term that's going to have an impact on them.
When it comes to I think the other half of your question, Ginger, had to do with how this comes about. We can speak to what input we did have on the trigger leads bill. Lauren, do you want to speak to that a little bit, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, the input that we had, Ginger, as we mentioned, and you were aware that we started that one 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so any legislation that gets worked on, especially at the federal level and even at a state level, it's not introduced today and passing tomorrow, right? Because you have so many different interests and so many different people that have to come together. And even when you do get the legislation to a point where it's been introduced and a bill written and it introduced either to the House or the Senate, then it goes to the other chamber. There has to be discussion that they have on, we like this, we don't like this. It gets rewritten, modified, pieces get stripped out. So it's really something that takes a concerted effort and stick-activity to see it through. And that's where it can be both a blessing and a curse, right? Because
that's going to be a Laurenism now. Stickiness. That's your term from now on, Lauren.
There you go. There he is, Lauren Blessing and Curse Patterson. It's one of those things that you do have to be passionate about it, and you do have to have stick-activity, and you do have to have a desire to make a change. working on legislation is not something for the faint of heart, because many times legislation, you'll go through several different administrations. And what may be important to, for example, the current administration, fast forward 4 years, the next administration may not think that it's that important. So very, very often you'll see legislation get introduced and then it dies when there's administration change, not to mention midterm elections and whatnot. And that's where, Ginger, it's so important that we become involved at the state level as originators and as individuals, because collectively it's our voices that can make a difference. And legislators, they're in DC, they've been elected by, the population. They've been elected by the members, for example, of Utah, say, here's who we want to send to the Senate and the Congress. We can't expect them to be experts on all subjects that they're voting on, right? It's just not humanly possible. None of us could do that. Right. So that's where the different industries come into play. And they look to us to be the experts and to give them perspective, and but not just a perspective on what I want to see happen, right? It's a perspective on, here's both sides of the coin. Here's the good parts, here's the bad parts, and here's the in-between parts. Because many times with legislation, you'll see that it gets passed with the very best of intentions, but then there's a series of unintended consequences that will come down thereafter that people weren't necessarily aware of on the front side. And so that's where we spend a lot of time as well, is not only vetting out, here's what we're working on and here's what's beneficial and here's what's needed, but also looking at, okay, what are the unintended consequences that could happen if this goes through, and what do we have to look out for there? And we've been so fortunate because everybody who's involved in this from the NAMB level is very cognizant of that. Our lobbyists are phenomenal at that. And it really does become then a collective effort where you get very, very good perspectives and points of view on things, and where you end up seeing ideas and initiatives and tactics that weren't initially thought of, but that become the genesis of this. And that's the part that excites me. That's the part that I have the passion for. And that's the part that keeps me going back year after year after year, even if some of it does take 7 years.
I love it.
You guys are making such a difference to our industry and to every consumer across America. And just to be able to do that, and you're kind of the heroes behind the scenes that people don't know about. And just what a rewarding thing to know that what you guys are doing every day, year in, year out.
Well, thank you, Matt. That means a lot, especially coming from you, because I know how you're also very passionate about what's going on. I might have a couple of additional generations on you at this point, which isn't something that I'm overly proud about. There's a lot that's going to be happening here in this year and next year. And as we look at the landscape for lending and home finance, there's a lot of work out there, and there's a lot of things that are going to keep the government affairs committees very, very busy, okay? And a lot of the things that are being considered as their legislators are looking at all these different challenges that we're having, if not done properly, will have or could have some very, very serious unintended consequences, right? We are fortunate because we have been invited and we're in conversations with, the Veterans Administration, and we're being asked for input on that. We've been having discussions with the CFPB, and we're excited about that. We've been having discussions with Director Pulte, again, excited about that. DPAs, anything that we can do that helps advance things for homeowners, right? Because that's ultimately who we're serving. Yes, we represent our industry. Yes, we represent the professionals within the industry. It's the consumers that all of those industry professionals serve. And that's where you get people that are looking at this, not just from the self-serving standpoint on let's pass legislation because it will make my life better, easier, et cetera. It's how do we do this for the benefit of the consumer and those that we serve? How do we make the industry better? How do we make home ownership and the home ownership financing industry better than it was yesterday? And that collective voice and that collective focus and that collective passion that's out there, that's the fun part, right? And that's, GA is what got me involved in my state and national associations. And it always will, because I think that's where we have an opportunity to make a difference and move the needle. And getting involved in the process sooner than later is so important, because many times you'll see people in industries, associations, companies, they'll get involved, but they'll get involved in the 11th hour. And by the 11th hour, it's a foregone conclusion,
Yeah,
right?
it's too late.
You really want to be in that discussion at the 30-second mark when it starts.
There we go. And to this point of those things that we as an association, the National Association of Mortgage Brokers, are focused on this year, circling back to your original question, Ginger, I'm going to go down that list too. I've already mentioned LO Comp and affordable housing. We're still focusing on the 1099 versus the W-2. Okay, so I think we all know that. And if there's anybody out here who has other questions, feel free to email me. And you get my email address following this.
Yep.
What's also important is an FIP. I'm looking for that longer term reauthorization, and there have been a couple bills introduced, and we see that there are 4 different legislators that we can approach to help along with that and provide them that hands-on input for that bill or for those 2 bills. And 2, I think I'm going to tie 2 things in here real quick. I just mentioned 4 items: LO Comp, affordable housing, 1099 versus W-2, and an FIP. We have 2 others, but they're like more of a secondary per se, but they're still just as important. It's just a matter of we only have so much time and so much energy to focus, right? So the other 2 are VA modernization and Gold Star spouse. So that's a quick summary there.
Yeah.
And so what I just addressed are those items that are on the legislative side. Okay. And very quickly on the regulatory side, we have the LLPAs, which we mentioned will speak directly to affordable housing. We've got Lauren's idea during the first quarter or 2 of his year last year as GA committee chair was to also make modifying the refinance limit from 12 months to 6 months a top priority, and that is one of our regulatory initiatives this year. And cost of credit reports, something that's very near and dear to all of our hearts. Yes, exactly. So that's a topic for us on the regulatory side also. And we close that by the AMI side, which I've already spoken to.
Yeah.
So I just want to wrap that part up.
So,
Talk about an agenda. You guys are busy.
yeah, I mean, I don't even know how you originate loans. That's enough right there. And the thing of it is, so our goal in the podcast and starting this is, first of all, to give, those who don't know what's going on, to give an idea as far as here's what's happening. And this is just a beginning point. So you guys are going to we've talked about probably have you back every month, quite honestly, because there's so much going on this year. We want to be able to have that information out there. So if you all will indulge us, we would love that. And then some other things too. I think, Matt, you have your meeting that you do monthly. We have our NAMB Hive. I want to do some live Hive dives where we can just, have people on and ask questions and do it live, because obviously this is recording. So all of that. So on that, I'm going to go ahead and end us here, because I know, Marvin, you have a meeting you need to get to. And again, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for your commitment, your stick-to-itiveness, Lauren. And of course, Matt, always thank you so much for joining. We truly appreciate everything that you do, my friend. And make sure and listen. You guys follow us. You can find us at nambpodcast.com. We have many episodes, and this is a great way to find out what's going on in the industry. And if you're not a member of NAMB yet, by all means, do become a member of NAMB. And if you are in Florida or want to get to Orlando, in January, we have NAMB Focus coming up, and that will be January 14th through the 17th. It is in Orlando. I know I can use some warm weather, so make sure to do that. So gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate that, Lauren. Okay. Thank you guys. You guys have a great one. We'll see you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Guys, see you.
Thanks for tuning in to the NAMB Podcast, brought to you by the National Association of Mortgage Brokers. For more episodes, resources, and guest interviews, visit nambpodcast.com. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you soon.